There's many theories. There's aliens, there's giants, there's the Legend of Merlin. The more I look into the legend, there are some parts of the myth of Merlin that do make sense. This is crazy. So for anybody who doesn't know, never been to Stonehenge before, you are not allowed up in this circle. This is extremely a VIP experience that I'm having right now. It's super early in the morning. We've been allowed to come up before all of the crowds do. It is so beautiful. It looks quite small from far away. When you first see Stonehenge, you're like, oh, is that it? And then as you walk up over the hill and you come into the stone circle, the stones get bigger and bigger and you just feel smaller and smaller and smaller. This is insane. Facts about Stonehenge if you don't know anything about Stonehenge. So the first thing to be built around here was like the hill, the moat, which was what they call a henge. And then around 3000 BC, 3300 BC, no, around 3000 BC, the bluestones were brought here from the Preseli Hills in Wales, and they were only put on the perimeter. They were like this huge, just a straight stone circle. And then a few hundred years later, more people came, and then they put the sarsen stones, which are these big boys here, which came from like more local. And basically they've changed the arrangement here a couple of times. Also in the 60s, there was a big reconstruction of the area because a lot of them are, as you can see, falling apart and into disrepair. Also, shout out this movie. If you know this movie, then you know what this has to do with Stonehenge, and you're a legend. The Legend of Merlin tells us he was a wizard who used to help heal people in the Bluestone Circle, called the Giant's Dance. And then he asked giants to walk the stones from Ireland over to Salisbury. Is the Legend of Merlin like just that? Is it just a story? Is it just a myth? Or are there actual grains of truth embedded into the story that we should be taking more seriously? I think yes. It feels insanely old, insanely sacred, insanely special. The erosion here is crazy. This is younger than a lot of the stuff in Egypt. However, the rocks in Egypt are quite pristine. Look at the stones in here, the erosion. They've dated the stones here to around 3000 BC, and I do kind of trust the technology. However, I guess it's just the weather in England is just a lot more wet and rainy, and it erodes the stones a lot more. I don't know. Okay, you can see up there, the stones are literally locked together like Lego, and you can see again up here, you can see, oh no, you can't, there's like, you can see where like the holes and the little bumps are to kind of lock them in place. I guess that one has some like Lego locking holes in it as well. Now the heel stone is over here. It looks tiny, but apparently it's the biggest one, weighs like 30 tons, and it might be the oldest and the first stone that was laid here. It does look so odd. You can't see anything. Salisbury Plain is so flat and gorgeous. You're like, why here? Why in this location? And why drag the stones 250 kilometers from Wales, which would be a massive feat? Why drag it here? What's the purpose? I don't know. There's many theories. There's aliens, there's giants, there's the Legend of Merlin. The more I look into the legend, there are some parts of the myth of Merlin that do make sense. Apparently back in the day, Wales was part of Ireland, technically, like in its sort of counties. So when they say that Merlin brought the stones from Ireland, technically that could be true because Wales was Ireland thousands of years ago. I just don't know how they would have, like, how did they drag these beasts all the way over here when the wheel wasn't even invented? Hi guys. There are two theories on how they travelled the stones from Wales all the way to the Salisbury Plain, and one of them is on wooden rollers and the other one is on a sledge type apparatus, which they've actually, English Heritage have constructed a kind of prototype of it, and they've got it on display at Stonehenge, so you can have a little visual idea of how they might have pulled it. They also did an experiment where they got about 30 13-year-old children to pull a 2-ton stone with this sledge, and it worked. Like, the children could pull it quite easily. So it is possible and feasible, even though it's a massive feat, that they could have dragged the stones using something like this. Recently, there was a project called the Digital Mapping Project, where they scanned extensively all around the surrounding area of Stonehenge, and they discovered that there was loads of previously unknown monuments in the area. Lots of henges, buildings, and Neolithic settlements that they basically didn't know existed. And now we do. So Stonehenge wasn't alone. And it also wasn't the first. I really didn't have a lot of time, but I had just enough to quickly grab some 3D Lidar scans of 2 of the stones. It's insane the amount of detail that you can get. This is just on my iPhone 12 Pro with a free Lidar scanning app. I wish I could go back and do a couple of more, because you can even, in the app, you can accurately measure what you scan. So I was able to see the blue stones were 1.2 meters wide and around 2 meters tall. I thought that was really cool. But the age-old question, what is Stonehenge for? What was the purpose? Was it purely ceremonial or was it functional? I mean, it's kind of anybody's guess. However, a man called Stephen emailed me just before I went to Stonehenge. He is an engineer and he's been studying ancient Egypt and Stonehenge for many, many years. And he has created a prototype machine based on the exact layout of Stonehenge. And he's created something called the Flying Cloud Machine, which essentially enables you to carry huge, huge weights and walk it across distances, which, if this is true, and Stonehenge was actually a massive blueprint for how to make one of these machines, then that's insane. So I'm going to show you a little bit of Stephen's work, because I think that it's fair enough to say it's a weird coincidence or it's an actual theory.
So the machine is now in equilibrium, really. When disturbed, it goes back to its resting point. And it's at this point you can move the assemblage forward. Then by rotating the model around, the weight is transferred to this side of the rocker. This rocker is lifted off the floor, and then you can swivel it and move it that way.
First, Stephen made a mini prototype to check that it would work, and once it did, he then scaled up to another prototype, which was still a lot smaller than what the actual machine would be. He proposes that the actual machine would be up to 65 feet wide and could take a hell of a lot of weight. Machine's center is kind of a circle within a circle, and it holds holes that you can put metal balls inside. And this may account for the reason why loads of Neolithic sites have metal balls just like lying around. Could they have been from these machines? Are we looking at the ball bearings of like a weight distribution rock walking machine?
Turntable. There's a barrow. There's a north and south barrow on Stonehenge. So there's 2 barrows there and there. Yeah. Well, they call them barrows, but I think of an inspection. Yeah, we come near Vanessa and just video the can see it's for taking the balls out when they're broke.
Oh right.
So say they have a broken one, they can put they'll take a broken one out there, and as it comes around, somebody else will drop a new one in. And they had these carved stone balls in Scotland. They're only 2.75 inches, and they're all carved. They're not round at all. And I think they fill them with grease or tallow, is it?
Yeah.
Drop one in, and then just leave that in, and then the tallow and the fat if there's any bits of chippings and whatever, that'll get all the stuff, and then he'll take it out that end there. So we need to put this other plank on the top.
In the same way that I believe many ancient cultures viewed men of science as gods or magicians, maybe Merlin was an engineer and he magicked over the stones from Wales using science, engineering, and some ingenious method that we have forgotten about. I don't know, it's possible. Let me know what you think in the comments. I hope to be getting back to Stonehenge and also visiting some of the other Neolithic and megalithic sites in the UK, as at the moment I can't travel, so I'm a bit gutted that I can't get out and about and around the world. But we move. See you next time.